As with both Samurai and Megaforce, Season 2 is labeled Super, in this case Dino Supercharge. Although before that, there was one more clip show in the first season. Also, like the other Neo Saban era shows, holidays are just an excuse for clip shows. In this case, a Christmas one where Poisandra steals Santa's computer that registers naughtiness and niceness. Santa calls the Rangers for help. What's funny is that as absurd as this concept is, and the Rangers just accept it, this isn't even the first time Power Rangers have encountered Santa. Anyway, unlike the other two series, the first episode is not called Super Dino Charge, but When Evil Stirs. It's been several weeks since the end of the first season, and Tyler is traveling alone now. He recaps the events of the first season before we get into things proper. A monster emerges from solitary confinement and meets with some of Sledge's old minions, who are still hanging around and maintaining the cells for some reason. He goes by the name of Snide.
But you can call me Master.
When one of the minions disobeys, he kills them, but then a tattoo on his neck glows, changing Snide into Heckle.
Please excuse my other half. Snide is rather uncouth.
Yeah, the Jekyll and Hyde thing is kind of obvious with the names, but what's interesting here is that unlike, say, Anton Mercer and Mesagog, both halves are evil, just with a different brand of it. He can even communicate with Snide via his pocket watch. He has the Vivax free all the monsters from the cells, and it seems Poisandra, Fury, and the ship's engineer Wrench, yeah, I hadn't mentioned him before because it wasn't important, all survived the crash. What the hell they've been doing for the last few weeks is anyone's guess. In the last few episodes of the first season, Wrench had invented a reanimation device that allowed him to bring back dead monsters, and Poisandra hopes he'll use it on Sledge, but he says there isn't a piece of him left to use it on. That could mean either Sledge was vaporized, or he left. Heckle makes a speech to the freed monsters, offering anyone who brings him an Energem a chance to rule at his side. Otherwise, they can leave if they want. One monster decides to leave, and Heckle vaporizes him when his back is turned.
He would have been the first to betray us. And now we all know what becomes of traitors.
Just a feeling, guys, but I don't think he's gonna honor the employee health plan. Back at the museum, they get a letter from Shelby, whose parents are encouraging her to go to school for business. The restaurant is overworked, and Kendall is interviewing a new waiter, aka Heckle. To be more clear about how they're different, Heckle wants to use subterfuge to get all the Energems, even finding out where Shelby and Chase are, while Snide prefers just attacking directly now. Heckle dispatches a monster that kidnaps Shelby, Chase, and Riley. The three at the museum decide to investigate when a message from Tyler cuts off, and they find his Jeep encased in ice. However, Kendall and Ivan are soon taken too, leaving only Coda. Also, it's the same ice monster from not only the beginning of the show, but another episode too. Seriously, this guy is like the pudgy pig of this series. Tyler and Coda meet up at the museum, Tyler himself having gotten away from the monster too. The two hatch a plan to save the others, which actually involves them leaving their suits and letting them get frozen, which I didn't even think was ever possible. Neat. They free the others and meet Snide, who mentions that the Energems are the key to his past, present, and future. He has Tyler at his mercy at one point, but his tattoo glows again and he's forced to retreat to maintain his cover, mentioning that he's run out of energy. After defeating the monster, everyone meets up again in the command cave, Prince Philip even getting called in. Oddly enough, they don't mention the new threats, just that they all need to redouble their efforts to find the final two Energems, including whoever is bonded with the Aqua Gem. No, that's followed up in the second episode, where Kendall says she developed a new weapon to fight against Snide, the Dino Super Drive. Weirdly, despite not having anything going by the name of Dino Supercharge, they start referring to themselves that way. Tyler does eventually get a supercharge mode, but they're saying it before that happens. It's weird. More significantly, Heckle, using a bit of subterfuge, ingratiates himself into the Rangers' goodwill, discovering their true identities. He does learn the location of the command cave, but due to the Monster of the Week, he loses his memory of it. The Superdrive armor is really just more armoring while in the Megazord, plus a sword with a gun barrel in it. Because science. Sadly, the dynamic with Heckle and Snide only lasts until the third episode, where Shelby catches Heckle in the act of screwing with the team, and they see him transform into Snide. It's odd that they cut the dynamic so quickly, since it's a good storytelling engine and makes Heckle a different sort of villain than Sledge. Instead of just having him hang out in the ship all the time, he can actually manipulate the team without their knowing. Meanwhile, Tyler receives a letter from a man named Rusty, a man who was on the same expedition as his father who wants to meet him. Rusty tells him about the two exploring a cave together that began collapsing. His father saved Rusty, but the collapse meant that he was either crushed to death or was trapped inside of a cave system that stretched for miles and miles. A new general arrives on Earth in a flaming golf ball. He goes by the name of Singe, wanting to join up with Heckle to try to get the Energems. By the end of the episode, Singe starts butting heads with Fury, wanting to supplant him as Heckle's right-hand man. During Roar of the Red Ranger, Tyler is attacked and knocked into a tree by one of Singe's monsters, but is saved by the Aqua Ranger. They don't stick around, though Tyler recalls that Rusty seemed to recognize his Energem. He appears again later when Tyler's mind is overtaken by a T-Rex's mind, because Power Rangers, and he knows who Tyler is.
It's me. I'm your dad.
As mentioned before, there is the Supercharge mode for Tyler, which is basically a battleizer with some slightly different patterns on his pants and a chest plate that's actually made from a miniaturized version of the T-Rex Zord. Tyler's father explains that he found the Energem during the cave-in and has been a ranger for the last 10 years. He found the Energem in a fossil during the cave-in and quickly encountered Fury afterwards. After he escaped the cave, Fury kept chasing him, and so he couldn't risk going home. He's been working with Rusty, and the two didn't even realize there were other Rangers until he spotted Tyler's Energem. Seems a bit weak in explanation, and he couldn't even send a letter saying he was okay, but whatever. Still, thanks to some stuff that happens in the follow-up episode, Keeper and him decide his skills would be better used searching for the final Energem, so he departs again. After a long stretch of filler episodes, Tyler's dad returns along with Philip. The Xandarian Science Academy has finished an aggressive search and scan of the planet. The Silver Energem, the final one, is not on Earth. Confirmation of that soon arrives in the same episode, Gone Fishin'. A message arrives for the Rangers from the Silver Ranger.
Greetings, I am the Silver Ranger. I send you this message from the far reaches of space.
I guess the Silver Ranger is from the past too, an old sci-fi movie serial. He informs them that his Zord, the Titanozord, is still on Earth, and his distance from it has kept it disabled. They manage to get their hands on the Titanozord, which of course has its own Megazord too, bringing the total to 4. However, there's something else going on. Singe knew the location of the Titanozord before the Rangers did, and while Snide just accepted it, Heckle's not an idiot and confronts him. Singe tries to shoot him, but Heckle drives him off.
Compared to my boss, you don't know the meaning of the word evil.
Singe returns to his golf ball and flies off back into space. Since the Silver Energem is in space, the Rangers decide to rededicate their efforts to finding Heckle's base, with Tyler's dad once again leaving to go take care of that. You know, dude, you're gonna give your son abandonment issues at some point. Later, at the end of Catch Some Rays, they're finally able to reestablish contact with the Silver Ranger. And it's not good news. He informs them that the Dark Energem has arisen again.
The 10 Energems were formed from pure good, but the Dark Energem formed from pure darkness.
Pure evil?
Pure evil.
He says their only hope is if he has the data on all of their Zords. Kendall is reluctant, but Keeper thinks it's the only way to protect them. The Dark Energem threatens their past, present, and future. In the following episode, Keeper gives a more detailed explanation of the Dark Energem, that it was made basically as a residue or byproduct of the formation of the 10 other Energems, that it's capable of destroying them.
It was hidden deep within a planet called Sentai 6.
Oh hey, that's the planet where all those powers never before seen on Earth came from. A mysterious warlord found the Dark Energem and destroyed Sentai 6 in the process, shifting the orbit of Sentai 5, where Khan was stranded, and turned the planet into a desert. Nah, of course, the warlord and the Energem just disappeared. If it has resurfaced, then the Silver Ranger needs everything he can to fight it. Singe soon returns with his boss, Lord Arcanon.
Long ago, I hired Sledge to capture an army for me.
Arcanon's the real deal. Not only is his power greater than Heckle's, he has access to the Rangers' technology, allowing him to summon their Zords. However, thanks to a monster created by Wrench, the Zords aren't enough to stop him. Arcanon decides to cut his losses and leaves, having a different plan to get the Energems, which is what he really wants now. The Rangers regain control of their Zords, but it's not enough. Fortunately, Kendall arrives with a new Zord combination to deal with it, the Dino Charge Ultra Zord, and its massive pointy head with silly chest piece. The Rangers destroy the monster and Heckle is thrown clear of it, Arcanon reclaiming him as his prisoner. Later, the Rangers realized that the only way they could have claimed the Zords and recreated the Chargers like they did is if they had access to the technology, meaning either that the Silver Ranger was evil, an idea Keeper outright dismisses, or he's been captured. This leads us into Silver Secret. The Silver Ranger arrives on Earth, claiming to have been captured by Arcanon and forced to create the Dino Chargers for the stolen Zords. They quickly see through the lie.
You Rangers are smarter than we thought!
The Silver Ranger easily kicks their asses, but then suddenly develops a headache and switches back into Doomwing, one of Arcanon's henchmen, and then changes again into a form called Xenowing. He says his body has been cursed by Arcanon, two forms inhabiting the same body. The Silver Energem is encased in Doomwing's sword. Keeper confirms that Xenowing used to be his old apprentice, so he's glad he's still alive at least. But you know what this episode, starting our build-up to the finale, really needs? A subplot about Shelby wanting to join a band, with Tyler in turn wanting to impress her. The only good thing to come out of this is Tyler admitting he has feelings for Shelby, who in turn says she's already impressed by him.
What are you doing?
Coda, you cockblocker! We could have had the first proper kiss in this franchise in 20 friggin' years! Using some technology, they managed to separate Doomwing and Xenowing, although he still escapes with the Silver Energem. Still, without Xenowing inside of him, he can't morph, and Arcanon finds him useless as a result. Oh, and hey, people thought it was weird when Doggy Kruger morphed into the Shadow Ranger? How the hell does the big bird dude compact into that? In the following episode, Wings of Danger, Xenowing gives more backstory about what happened. It's kind of a trend of the show. Some major revelation, minor details given, then the next episode actually explains everything more thoroughly. It's not bad, it's just a bit weird. In this case, Xenowing came to Earth after the extinction event in search of Keeper, but only found the Silver Energem. Realizing the gems were still there and needed protection, he created the Zords as a defense measure, said Zords of course awakening when their Energems became active. Further backstory is given, explaining that when Arcanon destroyed the world housing the Dark Energem, Xenowing went to confront him. After he morphed, Arcanon touched him with the Dark Energem, which created Doomwing. Shelby speculates that that's what happened to Heckle. Speaking of, Heckle speaks to Poisandra through the bars of his cell when she mentions how she misses Sledge, saying that he knows something she'll want to know. In the meantime, Xenowing manages to reclaim the Silver Energem and destroys Doomwing. Poisandra helps Heckle escape and, as he sees the Dark Energem, starts recalling details about his own life. He used to be a good guy, keeping the Dark Energem out of evil's hands, until Arcanon destroyed his world. In his rush, he touched the Dark Energem, which created Snide. Arcanon wiped his memory of the events as he took the gem with him. With his memory restored, Heckle attacks and swears to get revenge, but he's just shackled again as a result. Stride makes a deal with Arcanon and has himself split from Heckle, who manages to escape in the next episode, Warg World, aka the Power Rangers Zombie Apocalypse episode. At the end of the episode, Arcanon absorbs the power of the Dark Energem and grows. They throw everything they've got at him, finally knocking Arcanon down. He loses the Dark Energem, but spots it nearby.
When I'm done with the Rangers, there'll be history! Speaking of history, guess who's back?
Sledge puts the Dark Energem inside of his gun and uses it to destroy Arcanon and Singe. As per usual, Sledge waits until the next episode to explain what happened to him. He barely survived the crash, but discovered some green glowing eggs in one of the cells. He put together a plan with Heckle and planted the eggs all over the world. Poisandra is pissed at him that while she was enduring all this crap, he was having fun.
I wasn't having any fun. Hawaii was awful.
My God, what did they do to him?
China, boy, that was miserable.
Oh no, he put on some weight from that junk food.
And Japan? No one has any fun there. Throw up your hands having fun in Japan.
This episode is just trying to give me tons of material for the stinger. Sledge wants the ship back up and running, which they've been unable to do since all the remaining ship's power is being used to cloak the ship from the Rangers. However, now that they've got the Dark Energem, it should be enough to get things running again. Fortunately for the good guys, Tyler's father witnesses this. By the way, it takes us until this episode to finally learn his name is James. He gets them up to speed, and the Rangers at first want to launch an all-out attack, but Shelby worries they'd never know if they truly destroyed the Dark Energem. As such, they decide to instead sneak on board the ship, But the plan doesn't quite work, since of course they have early warning sensors. Heckle comes to their aid, though he doesn't stick around. Long story short, the situation is resolved through some Jurassic Park shenanigans, growing a new Zord, the Spinosaurus Zord. Goody, a new Zord 3 episodes before the end. They meet up with Heckle, who gets them up to speed and explains that his motivation has always been to find a way to restore Sentai 6. However, he has one thing to say.
A hint to the wise. Get off this planet. Soon.
Sledge's ship finally gets off the ground, and he prepares to both get married and destroy the Earth. Gonna be kind of a glare for the wedding photographer. Anyway, this leads to our finale. The first part, Edge of Extinction. The Rangers find one of the green eggs and take it to the lab. On board Sledge's ship, as the wedding preparations continue, Sledge plans to have the Dark Energem be Poisandra's wedding ring. He apparently promised it to Snide already, but Sledge plans to have him destroyed first. Although Snide overhears and starts making plans of his own. Heckle shows up at the cafe, much to the Rangers' confusion.
What are you doing here, Heckle? A man should be able to enjoy his last meal, shouldn't he?
Heckle explains that the eggs contain a very powerful monster that they fought before. While confident that they could fight another one, there are 6 of them in total all around the world, and it was not easy to kill the one before. Fortunately, they managed to blast the one they found before it hatches, but the other 5 successfully hatch. Although, as Chase points out, they have 5 Megazords.
All together, we must fight to survive and save the universe.
Rangers forever.
While the Rangers head out to engage the monsters, Heckle decides to have a freaking awesome last day on Earth. And you know what? Good on him. He was the most entertaining villain, and the dude lost his planet. Let him have some damn fun. The wedding, unfortunately, gets disrupted because of a rat. When they detect that one of the eggs was lost before hatching, they try to pinpoint its last location. Snide is sent to Earth, but to ensure he isn't left behind, he steals the Dark Energem. Back on Earth, Heckle settles in to watch the carnage, but seeing a lost child, he reunites her with her mother, realizes he has to help prevent Earth's destruction. One by one, the Rangers are able to destroy the monsters, but Snide arrives at the museum and realizes where the base must be, crashing down into it.
Allow me to provide the museum with 2 new fossils.
Kendall fights Snide, the command cave getting damaged in the process, although not nearly as trashed as in other finales. Heckle also arrives and chases Snide off. He and Kendall pursue him to get the Dark Energem. The other Rangers arrive, destroying Snide's travel pod to keep him on Earth. Snide calls for Sledge to make him grow, but Sledge doesn't give a crap about him, and his backup plan doesn't need him.
It's because of me you're in this world. And I couldn't be happier to help you leave it.
Everyone lets loose and destroys Snide. Back on the ship, Sledge and Poisandra finally get married, but he soon discovers the Dark Energem has been taken, figuring the Rangers have it now. And indeed they do, since the thing survived the blast. Heckle says he can help them destroy it, but they then get a warning that Fury is attacking the command cave, where Keeper still is, leading us into the finale, End of Extinction. Sledge explains that the eggs did more than just hatch monsters. They unleashed tendrils into the Earth. Using them, he plans to pull the Earth out of orbit. After rescuing Keeper, the Rangers receive a transmission from Sledge.
Moments from now, my ship will yank the Earth out of orbit and into deep space. I've sold your miserable planet to the scrapyards on Common 5.
Careful with the sales contract, Sledge. That place is known to add riders to the deal. And indeed, he begins towing the planet, because this is Power Rangers, and we long ago gave the double middle finger to science. The Rangers' first concern is freezing, although honestly I'd say the bigger issue is simply gravitational stress as they're pulled out of orbit, probably affecting the moon too, so who the hell knows what kind of insane things would happen because of this. They've got about an hour or so before they're far enough away from the sun to start freezing, but Keeper thinks the true goal should be to destroy the Dark Energem, that its destruction will unlock their gem's full power. Riley speculates that since the gem was formed from pure darkness, maybe light can destroy it. Chase, however, has an even more brilliant thought.
What if we solve this the same way we solve everything? With teamwork.
That is the most real, authentic, hysterical laugh of my entire life, because that is not a plan.
It's barely a concept.
How is it that I managed to use that clip 3 times in a row now? Actually, there's more.
I'm the biggest team the world has ever seen.
The Rangers hijack television signals across the world, telling them that they're going to need the help of everyone on Earth in the next 20 minutes. The plan goes into action, with the Zords flying our heroes into space, along with a satellite containing the Dark Energem. And the people of Earth do their thing as the countdown reaches 0, and billions of people hold up mirrors, reflecting light onto the Dark Energem, while the Rangers shoot their own weapons at it, destroying it utterly. Not for nothing, but couldn't you guys have just flown the thing into the sun? Kinda hard to get brighter than that, just saying. Although we soon see that that would have been a mistake too, as the explosion creates a black hole. Sledge's ship is pulled inside, with the Earth close enough to start being sucked in. And then completely sucked in. Well, good work, guys. I mean, I was worried about the gravitational stresses before, but holy crap, you made it a billion times worse. Keeper says all isn't lost yet, that they can now use the full power of their energems. They're instructed to toss the gems into space. And man, oh man, wouldn't it have been hilarious if it turned out Keeper was evil this whole time and this was just part of his plan?
This is the Energem's ultimate power. The ability to transport you through time.
The plan is to send the Rangers back through time and prevent Sledge from ever getting this far.
What are we waiting for? It's about to get wild!
It's about to get wild? Dude, have you not been paying attention? They end up back to the day Keeper crashed on Earth with the Energems. They meet up with past Keeper and explain the situation, Sledge deciding in this version of events to go down to the planet to face them himself. However, history repeats itself and the bomb sent to his ship explodes. Only now right in Sledge and Fury's faces. Fury is destroyed, and surprisingly, Sledge seems actually heartbroken about that. Sledge grows and tries to crush them, but the rest of the Rangers, plus Heckle, arrive on Sledge's ship, reversing his growth and tractoring him back into space. They lock the ship on a collision course for the sun, destroying Sledge and his forces in one fell swoop. Coda and Ivan are given the chance to return to their own times, which they decide to do.
I will never forget you all. Neither of us will.
How could any of us forget being Power Rangers?
Well, Shelby, easily, because you have radically changed the past in ways you cannot even begin to imagine. But I'll get to that in a bit. Heckle and Xenowing are sent back in time to Sentai 6 to prevent Arcanon from getting his hands on the Dark Energem, and hopefully save Heckle's planet. And, you know, just start piling on the paradoxes already present in this whole mess. The other Rangers return to the present.
Order is restored.
No, it isn't. See, the Rangers return to the present and they're all happy, making plans about their lives now that they've saved everything. Except recall that Sledge's asteroids caused the last extinction event.
Amber Beach Dinosaur Zoo?
Of course. Sledge's asteroids never hit Earth. So the dinosaurs...
Yeah! That's a thing! So, let's leave the finale on this note.
They need you inside. The Triceratops has indigestion.
That is one big pile of shit.
Believe it or not, while this is the finale, it kind of isn't. The Christmas clip show episode, Here Comes Heximus, takes place after the finale. The Rangers are working at the zoo, and okay, I'm pretty sure putting a Santa hat on a T-Rex in a museum breaks a crap ton of animal protection laws. Shelby, Riley, and Chase get presents that instruct them to be opened immediately, containing coal that starts glowing. Soon, Keeper, Coda, and Ivan arrive via time portal for Christmas. Tyler opens his gift and touches the coal, which transforms him into an evil elf, a servant of Heximus, a monster who managed to escape from Sledge's ship just before it hit the sun. They used the clips to restore the Rangers to normal, and he spent the next 65 million years making an evil plan. And said plan eventually was, use evil coal to turn kids into his slaves on Christmas. Okay, is this dumber than the time travel thing? I mean, this guy is a villain framed around Christmas, despite having been around before Jesus existed. Anyway, they destroy Heximus and celebrate Christmas, the end. Before we get into the finale, I will say that Dino Charge overall is pretty good. It's not groundbreaking or full of deep themes or even the funniest, haha, you've discovered flatulence humor, Power Rangers, but it's a solid season with character development, story arcs, entertaining villains, and likable heroes. The action is good and most everything makes sense. Most everything makes sense. The finale, however, will make your head explode if you give it any amount of thought. First of all, just from a narrative standpoint, undoing the events of the entire season seems really cheap. Admittedly, they mitigate that by having all the Rangers remember the events so it doesn't feel like we just wasted our time watching it, and we can presume the Energems or the morphing grid or whatever preserved their memories of the timeline. But they're walking into a world they know nothing about now. Yeah, they've got jobs at the zoo instead of the museum, except they know nothing about maintaining a zoo, raising animals, and especially animals that have been extinct for millions of years, whose behavior and diet we can only, for the most part, speculate on. And with history changed so that dinosaurs now existed alongside humans, how has that altered dinosaur lives and behaviors? Look at the domestication of wolves into dogs and evolutionary biology there. What has happened to those dinosaurs, especially if they're safe enough to have in a zoo? With no adequate enclosure, by the way, if these shots are to be believed. But oh, that is the tip of the iceberg. So even if we assume that the Rangers themselves will remain unaffected by the changes in the timeline, the lives of their families, loved ones, and situations will not. During the course of the season, they impacted the lives of other people, getting them prestigious attention because of a plan going on, changing people's lives for the better, altering their attitudes about certain things. The Stone of Xandar? Not a thing anymore. Prince Philip donated a crap ton of money and supplies to needy causes and hospitals and homeless shelters to try to get the Energem to bond with him. Now? They're probably out of luck. Ivan resuming his life and never fighting Fury means no legend about the Stone of Xandar, and other historical treasures and events may not have inspired people. Riley is at the zoo for whatever reason, despite his entire motivation for leaving his family's farm being based around the Energems. Shelby's archaeologist hero, the one who was a bit of a publicity hound and a dick, still a dick now because of the events being undone. Hell, we've got a double dose of the timeline getting kicked in the crotch, because first they undo a lot of the series by destroying Sledge and not letting the dinosaurs go extinct, but then you have Heckle and Xenowing going back in time further to undo Arcanon getting the Dark Energem, and because Arcanon hired Sledge to retrieve the other Energems and to get him his army after he acquired said Dark Energem, that means the events the Rangers undid didn't even happen anyway, because Sledge wouldn't have been at Earth for them to undo the events of their own.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
I feel for Heckle wanting to save his planet, I really do, but there are ways of doing this without completely undoing the timeline. He could make it look like the world was destroyed and then bring it back again, etc. But this way is insane! The way things play out thanks to this finale have led to the question of Dino Charge's place in Power Rangers continuity. I feel there are 3 possible ways to interpret and speculate about it, all being equally valid due to the lack of information we have at this point. 1. It's exactly as we see in the episode. Dinosaurs and humans now coexist, with dinosaurs never having died off. This would mean that it's likely that Dino Charge in its entirety has taken place in an alternate reality from other seasons, much like RPM. It's just there hasn't been any official confirmation of that yet in-universe like there has been with RPM. The only problem with this is that unlike RPM, people in this world seem to know what Power Rangers are, that there's nothing to indicate the Dino Charge Rangers are the first Rangers of this world. Still, this is the theory that most fans have gone with. 2. Kendall was partially correct. Dinosaurs, for the most part, still went extinct, but now they're more of an endangered species, hence the need for a zoo to have them. This assumes that, aside from the main events of Dino Charge, history did not change all that significantly, or a corollary to this possibility, it really is Jurassic Park. The dinosaurs still went extinct, but history changed so that those are clones or something, preserving the continuity, and Dino Charge is indeed part of the main continuity. 3. The fan wank theory. Assuming that Dino Charge takes place in the same continuity as everything else but RPM, such a massive alteration to the timeline probably would have gotten the attention of Time Force. We can assume that, off-screen, after the events of the show, the Time Force went back in time and corrected all this. They'd save the Earth from the black hole, but let the events of the season play out as they did, and the Rangers would just resume life on Earth. It's the least damaging to everything that happened, and doesn't make the entire space-time continuum die in a puddle of its own blood. Let's talk about villains. Design-wise, Sledge is pretty cool. A much thicker design than most villains we've had to show off his strength, with the awesome mask to conceal what he looks like, but the red lights coming from the mouth vent imply almost a cybernetic component to him. I like his ship too, dirty, dark, and unpleasant. This looks like a ship that's seen wear and tear and is all business. Kind of like the Nostromo from Alien. This is a ship that's not designed to be pleasant or have creature comforts. And despite Sledge having the generic gravelly villain voice, it really works for him, since he's not some evil mastermind or emperor trying to be cool. He's a brute with enormous power and is single-minded in his goals. And the dynamic of him having a fiancé who cares not about power and glory but just getting married adds a bit more interesting things with him. It's different from the Rita and Zed relationship because of this, and both genuinely want to please the other, to the point where Sledge will hear no ill will towards her, and as far as I recall, never argues with her beyond, "Look, can I just do this one thing before we get married?" Instead of having dozens upon dozens of disposable, uninteresting generals, we have Fury. Fury's not that interesting either, but I like that we didn't waste our time with him. Just have one reliable bad guy who sometimes succeeds and more often fails, and it all works out. Sledge is good, but Heckle's a delight. He's patient and plotting, preferring subterfuge and manipulation. In Forgive and Forget, he manipulates Riley into trying to prove himself against bullies no matter what, leading to the situation that ingratiated himself to the Rangers. Again, I really wish that dynamic had stuck around for a while. While Heckle is not above killing underlings for its own sake, he's also smarter and more cunning, recognizing that it's important that Fury and Singe not fight.
The Rangers love it when we fight amongst ourselves. We'll never beat them unless we can work together.
Acting-wise, he's this wonderful combination of hammy overacting and legitimate competence that I find very refreshing. The split personality with Snide also gives another edge to the hamminess, almost as if he's straddling the line of sanity and may snap at any moment, especially since Snide is so much his opposite: aggressive, impatient, and kind of stupid. His arc to becoming a good guy isn't really much, just remembering that he used to be one, but even when he was restored to normal, I kind of like the self-pity and self-destructive route with it. He knows things are screwed just like before, and he's gonna have a blast before he dies. I don't know how much guilt he's actually carrying around with him for his evil actions, but hey, the Rangers are forgiving. Maybe they just like his coat. Arcanon, thankfully, didn't stick around too long. Of the three big villains, he was the most boring, just generically evil and wanting something powerful. At least the Silver Ranger stuff was clever, but that's the only major plan he had with any degree of success, and even then he dropped using the Ranger's Zords almost immediately, so he was a bit of a moron. I'll grant he was powerful, and introducing the guy who originally hired Sledge adds more interesting elements to the show's history, but otherwise he was just dull. It's also interesting that when he encounters Sledge again, he offers him his original bounty and payment and whatnot while at his weakest. I wonder if, while powerful, he was actually someone not that important or big who managed to get a little power and ended up just getting in over his head, since the scene seemed to really imply that he was frightened of Sledge. It might have just been because he had been weakened and he knew it, but you rarely see major villains on the show bargaining for their lives like that. Keeper's not the most interesting mentor we've ever had, but he's perfectly fine, and it's nice to once again actually have someone mentoring the team properly. He's actually able to give advice to the Rangers when they need it, frequently doing so throughout the show when they're dealing with interpersonal problems. For example, when Riley thinks that Chase is just treating their activities like a big joke and has just gone off skateboarding instead of hunting for the monster, Keeper has this to say.
Is it not possible that two different paths can lead to the same destination?
And indeed, Chase was actually hunting for the monster while skateboarding. He's not the best fighter, but he can fight, so he's not a load either. And his advice isn't generic platitudes, which I especially appreciate. A lot of the additional Rangers of the 10 don't get much in terms of character development or distinct personalities, forefront among them James, Tyler's dad. We know things about him. He was a good father, he had a passion for an adventurous lifestyle, and he believed in helping people, and that's pretty much it. He needed help to see the bigger picture from Tyler, since 10 years on the run were more about protecting his loved ones. On a side note, man, like everybody in this show only has one parent. Tyler's only got his dad, Riley's only got his mom, Shelby's only got her dad, Chase only has his mom. It's weird. Anyway, Zenowing is also lacking in the character department, but we can chalk that up to his arrival so late in the game. He's noble, and the one episode he gets after he's freed is about him recognizing the need for teamwork and the value of personal sacrifice, which Keeper just wrote off as him being trapped by Doomwing for so long. Philip has a bit more going for him, with at least 2 episodes for his character development before he just becomes Sir Cameo. When we first meet him, he's haughty and superior, believing the Rangers have desecrated the treasures of Xandar through their activities with the museum. But he is ethical. He does it out of a sense of honor and wanting to do right by his kingdom, inspired by the legend of Sir Ivan. When Ivan presents him with the Energem, he rightfully gives it back, knowing full well how important it is. His next appearance showed that he understood what the Rangers were fighting for and wanted to be of help. But ultimately, it needed a spontaneous act of goodwill and bravery like he had. Still, before that occurred, he was happy to give up the Energem when it became clear he couldn't make it bond to him, and that showed the true depth of his character. Ivan, likewise, doesn't have much development, at most needing to be less rigid in regards to art appreciation. Otherwise, his entire thing is being chivalrous and knightly.
A knight's loyalty is forever. I'm honored to be part of your team.
He likes to show off a bit, too.
It's Marvin! Put a little bit of pizzazz into it, Sir Tyler.
In the end, though, he's just a pleasant person who embodies very idealistic knightly concepts like loyalty, honor, fealty, and goodness. Kendall, despite being there from the start, is also lacking in development. She's studious and serious-minded, constantly needing to tell everyone to refer to her as Miss Morgan instead of by her first name. She's intelligent and willing to admit her wrongdoings when they happen.
I rarely make mistakes, but when I do, I correct them. No excuses.
Honestly, her more interesting stuff is in relation to Shelby. There's a bit of classism at play with her initial dynamic with Shelby. The fact that Shelby is played by a black woman even gives the whole thing a bit of a prejudicial edge to it, since it exists a lot in the real world in this same dynamic. And yes, it is possible to have those preconceptions about people without actively being hateful. Even if you want to dismiss what I'm saying there, there's still at least that element of elitism from her in regards to Shelby. A very clear attitude of, well, if she really knew what she was talking about, why is she working as a waitress? Just the fact that she can't see any initial reason why Shelby was chosen shows her inability to see things that well. Fortunately, she overcomes that attitude. As she said, when she makes mistakes, she wants to correct them. So when Shelby comes up with the scanner to find the Energems, she happily works with her and admits what a great idea it is, and she doesn't really display the same attitudes ever again. That brings us to Shelby herself, and she actually gets a lot of varying bits of development. The first season was all about wanting respect for her knowledge and resentment of the way she's treated. It's probable that she's used to it by now. Shelby's family is actually quite well off, owning a highly profitable ice cream manufacturer. And yet she's still treated like dirt and works menial tasks that don't exercise her knowledge and talents. Her father, pressuring her in the second season to get into business, is probably a contributing factor to it, but that same resentment of the rich is openly displayed in The Royal Rangers.
Look at this tiara. It's worth a small fortune. Do you know how many people that could feed?
She's only open to pretending to be royalty for a plan because it gets her close to Tyler, whom she's had a crush on throughout the season. It's actually a pretty well put together romance. Not the best in the world, but the two clearly like each other, are close friends, and it's not just one pining for the other until they get a kiss in the final episode with no build-up or reason for it. While it never comes right out and says these two are a couple now, they act like a couple, so they might as well be. And of course, that brings us to Tyler. He doesn't really have an arc other than the romance and his quest to find his father, which of course ends near the beginning of the second season, and not much changes from that. He does have a personality though, which is more than some characters get. In this case, he's enthusiastic, excitable, and has a real passion for life. It's possible that losing his father at such a young age taught him how fleeting things can be, and how important it is to seize the day and really get as much joy out of it as you can. Chase is the first in a long while who, they just say is from New Zealand to avoid having to cover the accent, although unlike Xander from Mystic Force, his New Zealandness is very much at the forefront of his character, from mentioning New Zealand dishes, being the tour guide for the team during their New Zealand visit, and having a kiwi bird on his skateboard. However, he's quite the douchebag in the series, a bit bro-y. He learns from his douchiness though, so I appreciate that. He's cocky and prone to his attention wandering.
Aren't you manning the grill?
The grill?
The grill!
And that's how the museum burned down and priceless, irreplaceable archaeological relics were lost. But who cares, it's a zoo now. Chase is most focused and at home when he's on his skateboard. He's quite girl crazy, but that douchiness gets him into trouble with them. But of course ultimately learns that, hey, maybe talking about yourself all the time does not necessarily attract somebody, and you should actually listen to your date. At one point he's a douche to Shelby when she wants to get tickets to a concert for a New Zealand boy band, and he doesn't recognize her feelings when he makes her late to get the tickets. In fact, his douchiness is so bad in that regard that it actually affects his connection to the Energem. Still, he's not that terrible, just the kind of guy you know is capable of so much more, but is content where he is. Coda, being unfrozen caveman lawyer, and seriously, he was frozen for 100,000 years, has trouble with modern concepts, so that becomes a recurring source of comic relief, like TV. Oh, don't sweat it, Coda. It takes a while to get used to Dracula the series. We learn he had a little brother that he saved from a saber-toothed tiger back in the past, going over the edge that put him in the glacier. And that aspect is just kind of brushed off until the final episode, when he expresses joy at being able to see him again. You'd think there'd be at least a little angst in regards to not being able to ever see his family again, but it's never really brought up. But that might just be because of Coda's character, his innate nobility. During No Matter How You Slice It, a monster uses its ability to sever the ties of friendship between the team. Except when he tries to do it to Coda, it doesn't work.
You are not just friend. You are family.
I think it says a lot that when Philip was trying to get the Energem to bond to him, it was Coda he went to. Coda having already demonstrated to him his own bravery, quick thinking, and heroism. Coda liked to have fun, but he understood right from wrong and wanted to do what was right whenever possible. Riley is overall a nice dude. He's very knowledgeable, driven, logical, and competitive. He's able to do multiple tasks at once and use mathematics and thinking outside the box to arrive at a solution, like when a monster uses spatial distortion to trap the Rangers in an abandoned lab. He realizes that the air vents are unaffected and uses them to escape and signal the Rangers to escape their own traps. He was bullied a lot as a kid for his intelligence and gets a little too enthusiastic about assisting Coda when they get into baseball. He says it's always been his dream to win some kind of major baseball championship. This, possibly combined with the bullying he experienced when he was younger from people more athletically inclined, helped shape him into who he is, wanting to prove factually his abilities. However, he's still a decent person, and in the season just has to learn to focus his abilities on the greater good, no matter how much he might want to let his occasional selfishness come in. Dino Charge feels in many ways like a direct response to Megaforce. Like all the elements that made Megaforce fail were countered here. 2 distinct seasons with different foes headlining the majority of their run, a changing of foes a few times, and the return of an old foe before the end. The upgrades and new power-ups are given away naturally and make sense within the context of the season. The Mentor actually mentors the team instead of serving as an alarm system. The Rangers have distinct personalities and arcs with acting that is comparable to most seasons, plus a romance that is developed throughout the show between both parties that feels much more natural and like it has payoff. Despite a slightly larger cast, nearly everyone gets a chance to have some room to breathe and develop ever so slightly. Even Xenowing, despite coming in so close to the end. There are no superfluous characters, and the mythology of the show is fairly clear and explained, with no important looming questions about the backstory or vague descriptions about what they are. The villains are entertaining and distinct, both visually and in personality. The only real problem is the finale, but it's a good ride getting there, and you can at least laugh at the sheer absurdity of that ending. When next we meet, we'll combine some Power Rangers staples together. Space, ninjas, and Kelson Henderson with Power Rangers Ninja Steel.
Wait! How does it end?
Oh, you know, 800 years of darkness, then you saved me, and here I am.